We're coming to the end of our holiday now. We thought it might be nice to do a little Q&A kind of session. We've come down to Train Street. We're just going to park ourselves in a little cafe. There isn't a train due for a few hours, so we should be good. Although, to be honest, the restaurateurs are all well used to the trains coming and everything gets cleared away in seconds.
Just sitting here on Train Street enjoying a little beer, and our trip's coming to a close, so we thought we'd just reflect a bit on. So, what have your favourite bits of the trip been, do you think?
Well, I would say the thing that I've enjoyed most is cycling through Vietnam. Cycling through the villages in Vietnam, particularly. I think if anybody was going to do any part of our trip, then cycling in between Hanoi and Saigon and then through the Mekong Delta were the nicest bits.
The Mekong Delta was absolutely fantastic, actually. It's so interesting and pretty and great for cycling.
And the weather aside, the people throughout Vietnam have been really amazing.
It's so nice getting a cheer when you're it's like the Tour de France or something. You're getting a cheer as you go past.
People wanting to come out and have their photos taken with you and all that kind of stuff is just really an amazing experience.
And just have a chat with you, actually. Everyone wants to do that. It's really nice.
Yeah. So I think that would be my highlight. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, I think there have been other things that have been really nice as well. Actually, northern Thailand was good. Chiang Mai and doing Son Loop was really enjoyable.
Yeah.
Angkor Wat was amazing in Cambodia.
Yes. I mean, if you go to Cambodia, Angkor Wat is
it's the thing to do. And actually, to be honest, all the archaeological sites that we've seen along the trip I've really enjoyed that aspect of it.
Yeah.
Might be interesting to talk a little bit about cultural differences.
Yeah.
What do you think the biggest ones are?
I would say the biggest standout cultural difference by a long way has been the kind of sense of kind of community and people looking after each other. In Vietnam in particular, that was really, really stand out, amazing.
And not just just all over in the cities and the countryside, the ethnic minority groups in the north, just right across the board.
Yeah, it really has been different. People are much more friendly, much more open.
And open to like tourists and foreigners, really. I mean, everyone wanted to talk to us, everyone was interested. There was no sort of sense of, foreigners had or shouldn't be here or anything like that. I mean, people were genuinely, really happy to have us in the country, especially again in Vietnam.
Yeah, and I think they kind of, there was a sense where they, we certainly noticed this in non-touristy areas, was that people really just wanted to come and talk to you. There was no sense of you're different, we don't like you, or we're uncertain about you. It was just, you're really exciting because you're different. And it would be so good if that was true in the UK, wouldn't it? Oh my God. And the difference that people bring, people are really excited by that.
And just open and generous. So we've been invited, we've had dinner with the family, we've been invited to spend the night somewhere without paying or anything, just, there's all sorts of sort of open behaviours people have to just welcome you, which, I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah. So, what do you think the most challenging bits of this holiday have been?
There have been a few, to be fair. I think in Laos, the burning season, the air quality, I mean, it was just so upsetting to see all the forests just ablaze and smoke everywhere. That was really tough. I think heat stroke was hard. We had heat stroke for months on end. And I mean, when you have heat stroke, you can't really eat very much, and then you don't get the energy that you need to cycle. So I think that was really tough.
Good for the waistline, then.
Yes, well. What else? What do you think's been hard?
Yeah, well, I don't know.
I mean, Cambodia was so hot and so dusty, wasn't it? That was hard cycling in Cambodia.
I mean, if you're travelling in this bit of the world and you're travelling off the beaten track, you have to be prepared for poverty, and there's a lot of poverty around. And that accounts for a more developed country, or what people see as a more developed country like Thailand, as much as it does in somewhere like Cambodia or Laos, which you think is going to be poorer and you expect to be poorer. So there's quite a lot of poverty around. I think you have to come expecting to spend some money in local shops and with local people to kind of spread some of that love around as you're going through the country, and that makes you feel better about it. But
yeah, definitely. And prices are so cheap. I mean, especially in Vietnam, it's insane. So it's nice to kind of feel that you can leave, what is considered to be a big tip, although it's not much really, and that helps. And especially in the more rural areas.
I mean, one of my big challenges, which it is everywhere, I have this no matter where I go in the world, is taxis. I just hate getting taxis. Don't trust them. They always try and rip you off. Doesn't matter where you are.
Yeah, it's just you.
That is just me. Okay, so there's a couple of topics that I think we need to discuss. One, I think, is definitely one for my family, which is what food's been like. The other is probably more one for people who aren't in my family and maybe more oriented towards you, which is around the history and what you found that interesting about it. So, on the food topic first, which is most important, what have you thought about food as we've been travelling?
So, a lot of the food's been lovely. I think Vietnam, oh my god, so many fresh herbs with every dish. It's absolutely amazing. I love that. Noodle soup is my favourite. Tons of fresh herbs.
Bit of pho.
But actually, outside of big cities, it's really hard to get vegetarian food. Snacks are just horrible. Like, everything's super sweet. In Vietnam especially. So yeah, if you're in a big city, it's fantastic. If you're not, it's pretty dire.
Yeah. I mean, I've really enjoyed the food on the trip. The thing that I really struggle with is that people eat kind of dinner food 3 times a day.
I don't mind that.
So, like the idea that you might have eel and beef soup for breakfast, for me, I find a little bit of a struggle. But that's just me bringing my Western culture to
I
it.
could quite happily eat pho for breakfast, lunch, and dinner if I have the opportunity.
Yeah. But on the whole, though, I mean, the food in Vietnam kind of gets a bit of a bad press for being a little bit kind of samey, but and this is one for you, Dan, my brother. On the whole, the food is much more diverse in Vietnam than we found across all of our travel through Thailand. There's a lot more variety. It is controversial, and certainly I think Vietnam is a better set of food options. As Catherine said,
Fresher, isn't it?
all that kind of fresh herbs. Most of the places where we've eaten, they've been growing stuff like yards away from where they're cooking it. It's just absolutely amazing. And really, really, really tasty stuff. So, I think that we could say that. Is that a summary of the food? Anything you'd like to add to the food topic?
What one food will you not ever miss again? I think we both know the answer. Instant noodles.
Oh,
no,
instant
instant noodles. Oh my god. Pot noodles. That's what pot noodles. Oh my god, never had them before this trip, and I've had way too many.
Yeah, instant noodles. Actually, I blanked that out of my consciousness already. So, Catherine, what have been your big takeaways around like the history and culture experience?
So I think the big thing in Vietnam, Cambodia and Laos is the recent experience of war. So this is the first generation in Vietnam that hasn't experienced conflict for generations and generations, and I think there's a certain sense of optimism that comes from that, which is really nice to see. I think in Cambodia there's a lot of poverty, and I think at the moment the prices are so high and people just can't afford anything, right? So I think that's different. And in Laos, I mean, that was the most heavily bombed country ever in the world through the Vietnam War, and there's so many unexploded landmines, and it still feels like it hasn't really started coming out of that period yet.
Yeah.
So I think that's really tough, and again, a lot of poverty now, so that's hard. But it does feel like there's a sense of optimism in Vietnam, which is kind of nice.
And their kind of economic and social changes are all so recent, aren't they? And that's the thing that's really amazing about it. Is that people are just starting to kind of see that. People are talking about the economic changes that happened in the 90s and the 2000s. I still own clothes that come from those eras. And I know you do.
Until they all got nicked.
Until they all got nicked in Costa Rica, yeah.
So the other thing we've not talked about yet is hotels. What have been your highs and lows?
And my highlight was probably staying in 5-star hotels in Vietnam.
Oh my god, they were so cheap. We wouldn't normally stay in 5-star hotels, but it's like $20 a night or something. And your lows?
I'd say the pay-by-the-hour motels that we've stayed at in Vietnam as well. Well, actually, not all of them. Just some of them were pretty grim, weren't they?
Yeah, some were actually fine, but a few were just filthy, which I really hate. And yeah. What about the resort hotels in Thailand?
Yeah, the resort hotels in Thailand. The word resort is pretty much a moniker for motel.
Yeah, it threw us off a bit at first because they are just like US style motels, really.
Mm.
Quite basic, porter cabin type thing usually.
Yeah, self catering, not quite a resort as it would be described in Vietnam. That's for sure.
Or in the West.
Yeah.
So yeah. Overall, the accommodation's been pretty good.
Yeah, I think we've
Usually.
only had 4 or 5 nights out of 6 or 7 months, which have been really abysmal.
Yeah, and I think I've also realised just how much Ben loves luxury, because it's to the point where he won't even let me book hotels anymore because he says my standards aren't high enough.
Well, they're not, quite frankly.
We're just packing the bikes up now. It's been a bit of a bugger getting the pedals off, to be honest, but we're almost there. So last night in Vietnam,
Yep.
gin and tonics on the roof again.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Sad to be going?
Yeah, I am a bit now actually. Yeah, it's been a really lovely holiday. So we fly out tomorrow. So this is the last video for a while as well.
Until the autumn.
Yep, spend the summer in the UK and then off to Mexico.
Viva Mexico!
Yeah, so I'll start my videos up again then.
Bye!
Bye!